One camera is not enough? That battery? No way. It's officially been a week since we started using the iPhone Air, and despite all the hate about it not having 3 cameras or a bigger battery, that really hasn't mattered to us. So here are 5 things we're loving about the iPhone Air. Let's start with the weight. You can't imagine how amazing it feels to use this iPhone every day. It literally doesn't bother you at all, and going from the Pro Max to this has been a game changer. For context, the iPhone 16 Pro Max weighs 227 grams, and the Air is 165 grams, so it's about 30% lighter. And that's not even counting the weight of a case. The iPhone 16 Pro Max already felt like a brick, and now, compared side by side with the Air, it feels even more so. And because it still has a big screen, it feels even lighter than you'd expect. The first time I picked it up, it reminded me of holding the M4 iPad Pro for the first time. Like, how can something like this be so light? Using an iPhone this light is honestly freeing. It doesn't bug you when using it in bed. It's easy to carry around all day long, so it's just perfect. Now, number 2, thinness. Besides being lighter, it's also extremely thin. This iPhone is just 5.6 millimeters thick, so you barely even notice it in your pocket, for example. Totally different from any Pro Max. And holding it feels kind of wild. In the first few weeks, it almost feels too thin. You even get a little bit nervous using it, but that brings me to the third point, durability. Of course, I'm not doing drop tests here, but after watching videos from Everything Apple Pro, Jerry Rig Everything, and others, I saw that it is really durable, more than the Pro models. So we've been using this iPhone with no fear at all, and the mix of durability, lightness, and thinness, honestly, it makes this iPhone feel the most perfect iPhone Apple has ever released. Now, number 4, the camera. Yes, you've probably heard a million times that it only has one rear camera, but there's a big difference that I noticed between the Air and the Pro models that actually makes the Air better in some situations. Starting with the iPhone 15 Pro, Apple changed the focal length of the main camera, making it longer. In other words, you need to hold your subject farther away than before. That means you can take a close-up shot of a label or QR code like you could on earlier iPhones, unless you switch to the ultra-wide lens in macro mode. The problem is that doesn't work in many third-party apps. On the iPhone Air, the experience is basically the same as the iPhone 14 Pro Max. You can still take close-up shots and it focuses perfectly. And why is that important? Because it makes a huge difference in daily life. Back when the iPhone 15 came out, we had trouble reading QR codes and even scanning documents because the main camera wouldn't focus up close. With the Air, that problem just doesn't exist, and it makes everything easier. On the iPhone 16 Pro and now the 17 Pro, I constantly struggle to scan documents in apps that only use the main camera. Just the other day, for example, I needed to scan my ID and couldn't get it to focus up close. When I pulled back, the ID no longer lined up where the app wanted. So it only worked after several tries, and even then, the picture wasn't that great. That really gets in the way. With the Air, that problem just doesn't exist. It focuses up close, quickly, and without any hassle. And it's also worth noting that the front camera on the Air is the same as on the Pro and regular models, so it's great for FaceTime, selfies, and everyday use. And finally, number 5, battery. A lot of people were complaining about this phone's battery before even seeing real tests, saying Apple was exaggerating and lying at the keynote. But the truth is, the battery lasts all day. It's kind of crazy. Pedro, my husband, usually goes to bed around 11 or midnight with about 30 to 35% left. And he watches YouTube basically all day long, not literally every single minute, of course, and sometimes he switches to the iPad, but even so, the battery has held up really well. For comparison, I use the iPhone 17 Pro in almost the same way, and I also go to bed at the same time with about 30 to 35% left. So the fact that the iPhone Air lasts just like the Pro, that's amazing. My Pro was bought in Europe, so it has a slightly smaller battery than the one sold in the US, for example. So if you get the eSIM only version of the Pro, it should last a bit longer than mine. So yeah, those are the 5 things we've been loving about the iPhone Air. Honestly, it's been such a fun phone to use, and if you're curious about trying something lighter and different from the usual Pro models, This one might surprise you. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.